Hello everyone and welcome to Flock Talk. We're officially in April, and you know what that means, right? Canadian tax time! Kathryn, Chris, and I will be discussing the checks and balances for taxes. Should be a good time. You know, when it comes to Canadian taxes, we have a motto, and that's be audit you can be. Right, Kathryn?
That is correct.
Well, to be perfectly honest, the taxes are no laughing matter, and I think we all have to take this incredibly seriously as we approach tax time. Taxes eat up 38.2% of the average family's income. That's more than food, clothing, and shelter combined.
A lot of people say that paying the federal taxes is actually unconstitutional. Can you believe these people?
That's outrageous.
Because of the often cited 1950 Supreme Court decision concerning the Lord Nelson Hotel in Nova Scotia.
Right.
Heard of it?
Right.
Heard of it?
Yeah, of course. It's the one that I cite all the time, actually.
I think we really need to talk about whether the federal government and the provincial government could delegate authority to each other on specific issues of labor and taxation.
Oh, I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, fine, we'll move on. But just one last tip. Make sure when filling out your taxes this year that you spell your surname correctly. F-O-O-L. Haha, we got you, April. So this is episode 5 of Flock Talk. I'm Myles and I'm joined with Chris and Kathryn, and today we're going to be talking about humor in video games. It should be a good time. So we're going to be talking about humor in video games, but first, we all have some hot topics to cover.
Hot topics.
First, I gotta ask, Chris, you've been playing a video game lately.
I have been playing a new video game, and that new video game is Torment: Tides of Numenera. Tides of Numenera. Torment: Tides of Numenera, and it came out this month.
Why do they gotta make the titles of these things so difficult to pronounce?
I don't get it. Why not just call it like Torment 2? It's gotta. I don't know why they have to make things so complicated. There are like 70-ish people who will be able to tie the two things together. Go, oh yeah, that's the Numenera. That's that game, and it's also Torment. It's like Torment didn't exactly sell well in the first place. So what this game is the spiritual successor to the original game. It was actually called Planescape Torment, and it was a Dungeons and Dragons game, and it had you going through the realms of the Planescape, which is more of like the realms of like gods and weird things, and not necessarily like the normal Dungeons and Dragons areas where you would hang out in like regular fantasy kind of lands. And it had you as a character that would continuously die, so death was built into the game. You would die over and over again, and one of the main features of the game in comparison to other Dungeons & Dragons games was that you could get out of most scenarios by talking.
Ooh, you can play like a pacifist style game.
Yeah. Most encounters had some kind of conversation branch that you could work your way through and find the option to get out without fighting. It was a game that didn't necessarily focus on some of the more fightier aspects of Dungeons and Dragons. People love it. Most of the conversations have always touched on philosophy or some kind of social issues. There was also a character, an NPC that you could get that was a flying, talking skull that people really like, I guess. So I played a bit of it, the original, and was okay with it. Like I got about halfway through before the thing crashed and I lost the save, and then I didn't want to go back.
I feel like that's fair. That's happened to me multiple times, and I would never ever go back.
No. Like you've put in a session where you play like 4 hours straight and then you lose the whole thing, and I'm like, no.
The game crashes and you're like, oh, so I guess that's where that ends. I guess that's the end of the game.
That's the end of the game for me.
If I'm enjoying the game, I'll do it again.
Yeah, but you're also the type of person that'll play a game a second time to 100% it. And I'm sure Chris and myself are not that type of person.
No.
Okay, fine. It's just me.
Unless I'm having a like amazing time with it, Even Ocarina of Time on 3DS, the 3DS crashed and I lost like maybe an hour of Ocarina of Time, and I was like, I'm not going back to that. I've played through it. I don't need to go back and play through it again.
That happened to me with a worse game, one that was probably not worth going back to. But when we just got our PlayStation 3 the first time, we bought a refurbished one.
Oh yeah.
And I got like halfway through Infamous, and then our PlayStation 3 broke, and it was saved on the hard drive. So when we brought it back, I was like, I'm never going to start Infamous again.
That's true. And actually it worked out really well because we bought that PlayStation 3, it was open box refurbished or whatever. And so we got it at a discount. And then the PlayStation broke, but it broke within like the first month. So we returned it and they just gave us a brand new one in box. So we're like, we got it.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah, it was just a better PlayStation that we got for it.
We are getting way off topic here.
Yes.
The new Torment game.
So Torment Tides of Numenera is the spiritual successor to the game that I described. I don't think Numenera is a Dungeons & Dragons setting. I think it's a whole new thing. The mechanics are all new. One of the main mechanics is that you can spend your talent points. You get a whole bunch of different talent points, might, intelligence, whatever the third one is. You spend them to do challenges, and some of the challenges are like convince people to do things, move this thing, etc., etc. You can talk and get out of most scenarios by talking your way through them again. And I'm 6 hours into it, and I'm not sure about it. I don't know that this kind of game hits me maybe the same way that led me to play through 15 hours of the original game. I'm not sure that this is now the game for me, and it calls into question what I think about Dungeons & Dragons on the whole, and whether or not I would enjoy the kind of playthrough, the kind of game that I always say that I would enjoy.
Oh, that is curious.
How far do you think 6 hours has got? Like, is it 6 hours, but like maybe you got sidetracked and stuff, so you're not that far into you're not necessarily 6 hours into the game? Or...
No, so there's like a main quest hub. There's probably, I anticipate, I haven't read anything about the later game, but I anticipate that there's several different places you go to, and each place has like a whole bunch of different things you can do, and then you move on to the next place. I'm still in the first place, and every single person you talk to just wants to tell you their whole life story. There's no mystery. Like, I will play for 15 minutes, talk to one person, go through their entire like conversation tree, which is all reading. It's not like they talk to you for the most part. And that's fine. I am fine with reading. But then you'll go to the next guy and be like, I don't know if I want to spend 15 minutes talking to this new guy. And just go through every single branch of their conversation tree. And then like maybe persuade him to do something. But I don't know.
Chris, I have to ask you, do you think it's the game that's changed, or do you think it's you who has changed?
I think it's a bit of column A, and I think it's a bit of column B. Because
you think you would be more interested in this, say, 10 years ago?
I think I would have had more patience for it 10 years ago. Now, I wonder why, because the game has all this other combat stuff on top of it, right? Like you can learn these new skills, you want gear, etc. I'm not sure why, if I can talk my way out of that, I'm spending so much time on skills and loot and what are we doing? Like, it's like this board game called Twilight Imperium 3, and I think you guys like probably tangentially know about it, but it's this huge, sprawling 6-7 hour thing. You have to, at the beginning of it, learn for an hour all of these like combat mechanics. And then as you're playing it, you find out that if you're actually using those all the time, you're probably playing the game wrong. What you should be doing is just like not fighting anyone for the first 3 hours. So you learn these systems and then you never use them. And I feel like a bit of that is happening in Torment. And I don't know, guys, like this is a game that I probably should really like, and I'm just bouncing off of it every time I play it.
It's really interesting because this popular YouTuber Cannot Be Tamed, Pam, she also does Media Mavens. Torment is one of her favorite games, but I think it's Planescape Torment is her favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
I would be interested to know what she thinks of the new Torment game, if she's played it or if
she's experiencing any of the same difference of opinion
between those two games.
Between the two games.
Yeah. So that's what I've been playing this month for the most part. And then I also picked up on the Android a thing called Mini Metro, which is a game where you make little subway lines in different cities. And I probably played that for 10 hours in total.
10 years ago, somebody comes from the future and says, brand new Torment game. It's It's got a lot of the same thing as the original one. Graphics are better. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Or a game where you make subways. What does Chris from 10 years ago say they want to play?
10 years ago, I go, take your subway game and throw it in the river because I want new torment. I want new torment now. But this subway game, oh my god, it's so compelling. Oh my goodness, like making little subway lines with your finger. It's delightful.
So has Sim Subway, has this game made you rethink your career choices?
I want to design subways. I think that I could do it so much better.
Definitely you could do a better job for Toronto, I think.
We have a troubling subway line in Toronto.
Oh, it's
so
very
if you could fix
embarrassing.
it.
Look up a map of Toronto's subway system. It's a U with a line going through it.
Yeah.
This is
And
what
then
I
an
think.
extra little line at the top.
The Canadian government has put out a Flight of the Navigator program and or War Games or whatever. They put out this computer program, and the people who are the best at the Metro links are going to be abducted and forced into correcting the subway system.
Yeah, no. The people who are the best at it are going to be killed. They're going to be kept away from designing it. And anyway, I have a whole long spiel on the TTC and how it doesn't make any sense.
Day.
We're going to move on to a Netflix original series.
Oh my goodness.
One of my favorite things I've seen on Netflix lately.
Like we binged it.
It's called Ultimate Beastmaster.
Oh my goodness. If you like American Ninja Warrior, which we do, this is just a strictly better version of American Ninja Warrior.
It is like American Ninja Warrior from 6 different countries. Germany, Mexico, Brazil, the United States.
Korea and Japan.
Netflix in each of those countries has a version of the show with commentators from that country. So if you watch it from Canada, you'll see the American feed. And the commentators are Terry Crews from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and The Expendables.
Yeah, from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
And someone else.
I didn't know who the lady was, but it's like he's like the main attraction for there. But like the only other person we knew was one of the Brazilian commentators is Anderson Silva.
From the UFC?
Yeah. And he's also very funny. And then they have then there's 2 German commentators, 2 Korean, 2 Japanese. And they're all standing in, they all have little booths right beside each other.
So the commentators will often interact with each other during the thing, because each episode, there's 2 people from each country who race off into an obstacle course, just like American Ninja Warrior. Whenever you see someone fail or succeed, it cuts to their commentator, the respective commentator, either, celebrating or, dropping their head in shame when things don't go their way. But the show is great. It is 10 episodes.
Yeah, the actual format, though, is every episode, there is one winner from one of the countries, right? So every episode has 2 people from every country, and it's in stages. The course is set up like a giant skeleton of a beast. And so the first stage is you going through the head of the beast, and then you're going through the belly of the beast, and then, by stages. And they eliminate some people after every stage. So sometimes, maybe both of the Korean guys will be gone after stage 1, and they have no one else to cheer for, but they keep going. And then at the end of every episode, there's one winner. They win $10,000, and they qualify for the finals. And so the very last episode is all of the winners from the previous episodes competing to become the ultimate Beastmaster.
What makes this show different than American Ninja Warrior?
Definitely the international factor. It's almost like a little mini Olympics, right? There's something different about American Ninja Warrior is just that. It's an American Ninja Warrior, right? It's almost all Americans. But just the idea that it's a multi-broadcast, that the commentators are all together and interacting, and it is just fun. It's just friendly competition. There are no stakes for the countries, right? It's not like America's number 1, we have to win, or Korea has to win for honor or something. No, it's just super fun. The attitudes of some of the athletes, though, really do kind of feel like I need to do this for my country. Kind of. Yeah. The Japanese contestants, some of them are very I'm sorry to have disappointed, and I let you all down. They're oh no, it's just for fun. Don't worry about it.
Would this show be improved if there were Beastmasters located throughout the beast, trying to stop you from getting further?
Like American Gladiators?
Oh my gosh, yes, I think that would be better.
Which I think is American Gladiators already perfected the format
Yes.
of this show.
I loved American
Like,
Gladiators.
why?
Well, no. Here's another
Yeah.
reason why Ultimate Beastmaster is better than all of those is because it's on Netflix and the entire season came out all at once. So when you're in the mood to watch it,
So you
can get right to the end. You can see
Yeah.
who the Ultimate Beastmaster is, right?
You don't have to watch
Yeah, exactly.
reruns
Yes.
Yeah.
randomly. You know, the way 90s shows work. That you never know when it's going to be a new one,
Or
and
if
when
you
it's going
miss
to be an
one
old
and
one.
then you watch just the ending and you're like, oh, the one I missed was the one where it had the good, Beastmaster.
Yeah, and like the season's shown all out of order, so they're like, and now the finals, and you never saw
Yeah.
the lead up because it was scattered throughout 3
And
years.
they actually definitely emphasize what they want in the season, right? I don't think those runs are in order. I think that they're paced accordingly.
The Ultimate Beastmaster?
Yeah.
Oh,
So, I think
okay,
they
that's
start you
good.
with a really good race, and then they give you kind of one that's a little bit more
Yeah.
average, and then they build it up again, back and forth.
Yeah, it's
So you
very
never
true,
really
'cause-
get bored.
Because the course changes very minimally, like throughout, like from episode to episode. Like sometimes it's exactly the same, but sometimes
Yeah.
there'll be like minor tweaks. But we'll notice, like when we're watching, we'll notice like, oh my god, like these guys all got like super far, and it was really close. And then other groups of people, like maybe no one will finish stage 1, right? And it's just like the people who got the furthest that move on. And we're like, oh, well, like the skill level is very, very different, but they grouped them in a way where like super competitive people were kind of against each other.
Yeah,
and,
so
like,
no matter what,
like,
each episode's competitive.
they were very similarly skilled people put up against each other. So that, I don't know how planned
Right.
that was, but it might have been. It might have been set up that way.
Kathryn, we had a really awesome in real life hangout with some people from the internet.
We did.
Uh,
My hot topic was
Your hot topic is hanging out with people.
Well, it was specifically hanging out with the members of the Cartridge Club at Nintendo Hodges' place. So after he'd gotten bought the Switch, he had Miles and Fraser from PPG over, but then he also wanted to plan sort of a big everyone get together and play. It's just a reason to get together. We see a lot of Cartridge Club members at the Barrie Game Exchange, which when this episode comes out is tomorrow. But we see them at the Barrie Game Exchange. The last time we did kind of go out for a little barbecue afterwards, but this was kind of a nice time to actually play games together and hang out together. So who was there? Like, let's kind of go over.
Bill from STC Pod, Buried on Mars,
And
Kevin,
his wife.
Sarka Sim from
Twitter.
and she also has Caught Me Gaming,
Oh, okay.
her blog, and Deggy from the Two Dorks,
Derek from the Two Dorks. Retro Pixel, Canadian Retro was there.
PPG,
Yeah,
Nintendo
he
Hodge.
drove us.
I noticed that Chris wasn't invited to this get together.
Well,
Well, the fucking nerds already
Let
have
me-
2 people represented.
No. You know what? I don't want to go where I'm not invited. Thank you very much. So thanks to them for the sweet invite.
I don't know.
I appreciate it.
2/3 of Flock of Nerds can go, and it could have been you and Miles, or it could have been you and
Only
I,
2/3.
but it just ended up that Miles and I went. So,
It's the No Chris's Club.
except for
Chris Hodge.
Hodge and Chris Wilson.
Right, it was the No Chris's Club.
Oh, there were also too
we can
many
have
Chris's.
one.
So if you went, it would have been way too confusing.
Yeah, somebody would say
Oh.
Chris and
It's too many Chris's, and it'd be like, let me ask you, whose house did you guys go
Nintendo
over again?
Hodge.
Okay, so Nintendo Hodge, was it like a Willy Wonka's enjoyment time of
his
like
game room is insane.
cartridges
Yeah, his game room
everywhere?
His game
Really
room is
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's
Like
got,
the
like,
shelves, the library of games.
2 different CRT set up on opposite sides, so you won't interrupt each other. Then, the main flat screen TV with a bunch of systems hooked up. He has the Nintendo Switch, and we played 6-player Bomberman because Retro Pixel brought his extra controllers. And if we miss anyone who was there, my mind is blanking. I feel like we covered everyone, but
What is this? If I miss anyone, oh my god!
I didn't think my publisher.
I'm just really in the moment. Let me ask you another question. How are the snacks? Because it sounds like this is a very well set up room But
Chris's wife makes amazing homemade pizzas. Oh, it's so good. Amazing pizzas. And then everyone actually showed up with snacks. So Miles, who was supposed to bring Uncle Tetsu's cheesecake, but that didn't happen, instead brought like a big brownie pie.
And I got it from a local bakery, and so there was an interaction between Buried on Mars and Bill from STC and myself. We were all at the snack table, and I had this brownie from the bakery, and I wanted to make a joke. Like, I revealed it, and I was like, yeah, I baked this myself. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And then I closed the box to show the logo of the store. But the logo of the bakery is Flaky Tart. So I was like, I baked this myself. And Buried on Mars is like, so you are the Flaky Tart. And I was like, yep.
That's my day job.
I am.
Do you find this funny for some reason?
I'm a flaky tart. Anyway, but it was just a really nice opportunity to like hang out with people. We're all like pretty introverted, so it was a fun group to like just talk about games, because that's what we're all. That's our common ground. So.
We played You Don't Know Jack, which is a really great icebreaker for groups. So
good in a large group setting.
Well, that sounds like it was a fun time.
It was, Chris.
Hey, next time you should come.
Oh, hey, I don't want to impose. I don't want to impose on anybody.
So that's it for Hot Topics. Moving on to humor and games. So I have finally realized what the one most important thing in video games is for me.
What is that, Miles?
Humor in video games.
Oh, how convenient. That is the topic of this episode.
What an interesting topic you've chosen.
I realized it while I was playing Yakuza 0 for the PlayStation 4. As you might remember, I had a really good run of deals with EB Games recently. And the first one of those was getting Yakuza 0. The day one edition.
And you had never played any Yakuza games before.
I really didn't know what to expect, except a friend online told me that I should really look into this if I like River City Ransom, because it's basically like River City Ransom meets GTA. So I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And what hooked me immediately was the humor in Yakuza 0, the things that happened in the game that made me laugh so hard, or even just smile, or just it affected me in such a deeper way than a game without humor would affect me.
I mean, it was really fun for me to watch play, because I like Japanese gangster films and stuff like that. So like the overarching Yakuza story is like pretty dark, violent, and serious, and follows like typical, Yakuza movie themes. But all of the other stuff that happens around it, just where he's just either character just in the city doing things in the city while working towards completing their main storyline, all that other stuff is really funny. Like, just for an example,
so the game is very serious, it's dark, it's twisted, but then when you're not playing the game, you're picking up side stories. One of the side stories is a couple guys outside a film studio see you, and they're like, hey, you kind of look like the producer who quit. Can you jump on board and pretend that you're a film producer so our director doesn't get upset? And you're like, yeah, okay. And so you go into this little diner area where they're shooting a cooking show, and the director comes to you with problems that are written in film lingo, and they have 3 possible answers for you. Like in your head, you're trying to make sense of what he's saying. And it's like, what action should you take based on what he said? And then you take that action, and then the director is either happy that you understood what they're doing, or upset, like, who are you? This is the worst producer ever. So for an example of that would be like, he's like, hey, can you grocer the food? Because we're going to be here doing the shoot for a while. And I was like, what does grocering the food mean? I have no idea in film lingo. And one of the options was to remove all of the meat from the plate, and I was like, that sounds like what a grocer would do. So I did that, and then the director was like, oh, I see you removed all the meat from the plate. Oh, that's excellent. Why would you do that?
Just as a side note, Miles has never worked at a grocery store.
And not just a side story. There's another side story about this kid who wants you to go in a back alley and buy a porn magazine for him
From
in
a vending machine
because he doesn't want to go in the alley by himself. And you're like, I can't do it. And he's like, all these adults, they always say they're going to do something for me, and then they don't. They all lie. And you go, I'm not going to be one of those adults. Not me. And so you go to the alley to buy the porno mag for the kid, but there's always like ladies walking around, and you don't want them to see you buy this porno mag. So it turns into like the Metal
stealth game.
Yeah, a stealth game, like a Metal Gear Solid VR mission, where you have to avoid the line of sight of all these women. Like one woman that you work with, these two older ladies who are shaking their head, these like ladies having a cigarette on break from work, and you're like dodging them all to get to the vending machine.
That's hilarious. Is it, because when I play through Grand Theft Auto, especially the newer Grand Theft Autos, and Grand Theft Auto tries to like shoehorn in humor, it always, like, the jokes always fall flat with me.
Yeah.
I'm always like, this is trying to be too clever by half. Does Yakuza seems like a more...
Yakuza's way over the top. Like, it's way over the top, so you never take it seriously, except the actual main story is kind of serious. But you can
choose... The main story is
choose...
very serious for some of it, yeah.
There's a couple things that make Yakuza better, and it's going to sound weird immediately in that there's no driving.
Oh, okay.
So the map is condensed, and there's a lot more to do in every spot in the map.
Yeah, and I think because you're traveling on foot, you trigger a lot of these side, like there's like 100 and something or 200 side missions, right? Or sub stories they're called, I think. And like they're just little stories that I think if you complete them too, like they kind of like affect your character a little bit.
Yeah, you get money which you could use to buy. You get
money and you can upgrade your character and stuff. So it is worthwhile to do a bunch of sub stories, but because you're traveling on foot, you trigger a lot of these stories. Like you'll just see someone and they'll have a completely different side mission for you to do. And they're almost all funny. Like I'm sure there are a couple serious ones. Like I don't want to say any spoilers, but there's one with a journalist that is actually pretty serious. There's the one that I really liked watching was like a little kid who on his first, like the first day of a video game came out, bought it, but then a high school kid beat him up and stole the game. And he's like, can you go get that game like that guy stole from me? And then you go after him, beat up that guy, but then you find out that he was beat up and someone stole the game from him. And then you just like this big chain where you keep going until you finally find the guy who stole the game. It's like, it was a really cute little, like you weren't expecting, you're like, yeah, sure, I can just go beat up that guy. But then it turned into like a little bit of a longer mission because he had to keep beating up more and more people.
Yeah.
And like stuff like that is unexpected, right? Like you think, oh, it'll just be a little thing that I have to do, but these sub stories are not short, like that short.
Yeah,
like they involve a little bit of time.
It definitely connects you more to the main character in the game because you see how serious their life is, but they still take the time to do all these silly things for these people around the town. So then you kind of care more about your main character because you can see this humanity attached to them. Like they feel like a real person. Like at one point you're helping a guy, a guy's girlfriend solve a crossword puzzle where the answer will turn out to be, will you marry me? So like this guy's like, help my girlfriend, she's not getting this crossword puzzle and this is how I want to tell her. And you're like, okay, this is kind of important, let's help this guy get married.
It's true, and all of the side missions are you helping someone, so it really makes you feel like I'm a good person. Like
I might be Yakuza, but I'm still a good person.
I'm a good guy, right? Like I'm helping all these people, asking for my help or whatever. And then it is two different characters that you're flipping back and forth between, and they both have these side stories, and they're very different characters, but they still have that side to them. Like and all the sub stories are funny in that way, right?
You can relate to both of them for sure.
It's a really, really interesting way to connect you to the person that you're playing.
And so now I'm obviously very interested in getting the rest of the Yakuza games. There's like 7 of them or something now. And it also made me think, like, what's important to me, humor. And then I looked at, like, my top 100 games, and a lot of them have humor in it. More so, though, the Japanese games. So, like, games like Yakuza, Katamari Damacy, is hilarious. River City Ransom is a Japanese game. Oh, it's my favorite game of all time. Help Wanted is one of my favorite games of all time. Yeah. Tons of humor in it. So, what's the difference between, like, why do the Japanese see games as humorous and fun, and North America is very Call of Duty, God of
Oh
War?
my goodness, just the lack of humor sometimes in these games. Everyone's got to be this grizzled hero that like doesn't take from anybody, but nobody's giving him because he's like trained them. He's trained them not to give them. So he's always like, don't give me any. And no one gives him any. No one ever gives him any. He's just this big hero.
That's undoubtedly the most swearing we've ever had on the podcast.
I'm sorry.
We're going to have to put a little a notice at the beginning. My number one game on my top 100 list is The Last of Us, and I think the reason why is because it's has a personal story, but it adds, like, and it's dark and violent, but it adds this little bit of humor to it. Like, there's, like, they joke between Joel and Ellie, and she finds a joke book, and if you wait long enough, she'll read puns and stuff from her little joke book. And it's like a little thing that helps cut the tension. And I think games that don't have that are they're just too heavy, right? Like, if that game didn't have that, it would just be a depressing game to play all the way through, right? It would just be like, it's too much. Like, they just keep going
stop
through.
caring.
Yeah,
you stop caring about the characters.
Well, it's a little bit like The Walking Dead, where it's just like, okay, now I'm just watching these people go through just different scenarios of the same thing, right? We move on, we find a place, we kill off the zombies, now we have to leave. If they don't have something that sort of lightens it, and that's why I think why The Last of Us really resonated with me, because like Miles, I find that there needs to be some humor in it, and that's what we like in games, right?
All right, but what do you guys think is like the funniest game of all time?
I don't know. I like honestly feel like it depends on your type of humor. But for me personally, Yakuza 0 I think was the most... I was like actively looking for side missions because I thought it was like serialized episodes of my favorite new comedy. That's like kind of how I saw the Yakuza game. Also, like, Katamari is hilarious how avant-garde and over the top and weird it is, right? Like, if that's your type of humor, there's probably nothing better than Katamari.
Yeah, and that one's like similar to Help Wanted, right? Like Help Wanted, there's a giant asteroid coming to that's about to hit Earth, and you have X number of days to make enough money to buy an item off of a shopping network channel that will stop the meteor. So you take all these odd jobs and try to earn enough money so you can buy something off of the TV to save the world.
And let me tell you, once you beat the meteor, something else comes from the sky and you have to destroy it. And that thing is a giant bowl of ramen with someone's thumb stuck in it.
Spoiler!
So it's a dirty thumb in this bowl of ramen, and it's a giant bowl of ramen headed for Earth, and you have to destroy it. And all anybody says is, their thumb is stuck in it.
I still think that Day of the Tentacle is probably the most funny game that I've ever played. And I played it, I think I spoke about it on the podcast last month. And when I played through it again, the jokes still stand up because the jokes aren't super topical. They're
punny.
Like, they're kind of the kind of jokes. Yeah, they're kind of the jokes that last a long time, which are puns and jokes that aren't specifically related to...
They're not references. They're not references. Right? Like, so many jokes.
So many times a reference is mistaken for a joke. And a joke is a carefully crafted thing, and a reference is just, remember that thing? That was funny because it was funny?
Yeah.
And the reference is taken as the funny thing.
And you know what? We were talking about the difference between Yakuza and GTA, and I think a lot of the humor in GTA is references, right? Like their Facebook character, and like all these characters that are references to our real life and are supposed to be taken as a joke because they're so absurd.
Yeah,
like they're satires of real life.
I like that you mentioned Day of the Tentacle because that's kind of like where I started in. I haven't played Day of the Tentacle, but other point and click games, and I think that type of jokey pun humor is very, very common in point and click games, specifically Sierra games. I'm thinking very specifically of Leisure Suit Larry, and I think that's probably like designed to be just a funny game, right? Like the whole Leisure Suit Larry series, and like they have the double entendres and stuff like that. Like they're just funny. Space Quest was also pretty funny, and I also think like when we came up with humor as the idea or as the topic for this episode, I kind of thought of Like, there's that funny where, like, there are jokes written into it. But then I think there's something like The Sims where you can do funny things in the game. Like, you're not intended, you're supposed to, like, mimic real life in it, but you can do things in that game that are just so ridiculous and have your character become, like, a ridiculous person or whatever. I think I talked about this before where I played and I got a roommate at some point, and I didn't know that I was also supposed to be controlling my roommate. So he never went to the bathroom, and I would all of a sudden would, like, hear crying, and I would, like, what is that crying? And it would be because he, like, peed his pants. And then you can make friends. Like, you can call people on the phone and build relationships. And so I would have parties, but I would have him specifically call people and, like, make them mad at him. And then when they would come to the parties, like he would just be so ostracized. I did like horrible things.
Party.
I did horrible things to the roommate. Like, I was a fine person. Like, I was very social and stuff. But like, he would come up to a group of people and talk to them, and they would all walk away because he's just like he had no social skills. And then like,
and he didn't want to move out.
No.
Did you play this game when your roommates were around? As if you upset me, this is what I'm gonna do to you.
It may have been subconsciously, like, passive aggressive. I never thought of that, but it was when I did live with my friends. But I don't think they really paid attention.
Did the Sims roommate eventually fall in love with your Sims, like a Stockholm kind of syndrome? Like you had abused him,
you know what?
And then finally he came around and was like, "I love you.
I think
I can't live without the abuse."
The Sims is one of those games.
Humor.
Things got dark.
The dark humor is something black comedy, but I don't think I got far enough into that game because I was unhappy with the decisions I made with my character. You had to make some kind of decision, and the decision you made kind of limited it's kind of like the game of life, like how much money you could earn once you came out of whatever that thing was. And I didn't, like, you could read books and become smarter, and I never did any of that stuff, so I was like, I don't want to continue this guy's life. I
can see where this is going.
Like, he's not going to do well in life, and I felt like maybe I should start again, and then I didn't have the energy to do that.
I want to move on to unintentional humor in games, but before that, it actually, I just want to say one last thing. What you were saying about The Sims reminded me of that Rick and Morty episode where they go to the arcade and Rick plays
Blips and Chips.
Blips and Chips, yeah, they go to Blips and Chips.
And they just play, what was the name of it?
It was
just
like
a
Ray
name of a
or
guy.
something. Yeah, and he puts on a helmet and he lives Ray's entire life. And he's so good at the game because he makes the guy live off the grid.
But when Morty plays, it's like, haha, you just like, you went back to her after.
No, he goes, you went back to
work after
back to the carpet factory after you beat cancer.
And then he beat cancer, and then a carpet landed on his head at the
carpet factory.
And that's how he died.
And chips.
And that's basically The Sims.
Yeah.
That's The Sims, yeah.
But unintentional humor in games is something completely different. Like, we were playing on the channel a game called Gex Enter the Gecko, and while we were playing it, the voice lines just kept going off nonstop, and they were limited back in the day when that game came out. So you just hear him say over and over again, it's like Halloween at Rip Taylor's. Or
that timely Rip Taylor, those timeless.
Or another timeless joke here. Don't take career advice from Joe Piscopo. And it would say
over and over again, like anytime you entered a room.
Like basically every time you jumped.
Or if you paused or something. And it would just on repeat these awful, like, one-liners.
A Joe Piscopo reference.
I know. So, I mean, it's kind of funny, but not for the reason.
You think Joe Piscopo is, like, embarrassed by Joe Piscopo references?
I don't know. Like, imagine Joe Piscopo playing the game with Rip Taylor. They would be very upset. And then also in, like, something as classic as Resident Evil, if you go back and play it, the voice acting is horrendous and, like, often made fun of.
Yeah.
Like, you were almost a Jill sandwich. Or like, hey Jill, I found this lockpicking kit. I thought it would be great for you, the master of unlocking. You know? Like things like that.
That's a real line.
Yeah, so I mean, it's classic. Everybody always talks about it, but I thought it was definitely worthy of bringing up when we're talking about humor in video games.
Yeah, I think also recently Bonus Barrel did an episode on Thomas Was Alone, and I played that game like when it first came out a long time ago, and I remember thinking like it's got like this British narrator and he's telling the story of these, and you think it's nothing, right? Because they're just like little squares and rectangles, and you have to manipulate them to move through, escape this thing, and they work together. But the narration is like pretty funny or whatever, and it reminded me. I never played Bastion, but I watched A9 like live stream that for a while, and Bastion has the same thing where it's the narrator that's funny, like they speak for the characters or whatever, and it's kind of like almost like storytelling, but humorous storytelling in that sense. And I think that's what's great about humor. Like you can find ways to put it into your game, like different ways to incorporate it into your game, whether it be through the actions that your characters do, what they say, or the story that you're telling about them, right? Like, humor needs to be a part of pretty much every game. That's what I think.
I absolutely agree.
That's where I land on this whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because I feel like if it's done well, it will always enhance the game.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Chris hates humor, though.
You know what? Less humor.
I want to cry every time.
A game that's funny. I don't go to games for funny. I go to games for big burly killing. Big burly men killing other men and then standing over the corpse and meticulously going through it and stealing their bullets.
Yeah, like the Call of Duties or, all that type of game. Even those games have humor in the game because people have sprays. People crouch constantly on people who are dead, and that's supposed to be funny.
Yeah, and the delightful people making jokes over the headphones
with the colorful language. Those stand-up comedians.
You work all week on your material, and then you go onto these computer games and you deliver your material. And sometimes it falls flat, and sometimes you get a lot of
chuckles.
You get a lot of traction.
Yeah.
You get a lot of chuckles.
I think that a lot of these people have really tight fives.
No.
Really tight vibes.
Yeah, they're ready for open mic night. Yes.
Yeah. A lot of really good humor about people's, sexuality, people's appearances, and their parents.
Yep.
The three areas where you can get a lot of traction out of some really quality good jokes over headphones while you're shooting people.
Well, that's how we feel about humor in video games. Definitely tweet us using the hashtag FlockTalk if you want to tell us about some funny moments you've experienced in video games. But we are not done yet. We have some odds and ends we want to cover.
Odds and ends!
So, Chris, really quick, I just want to list off 6 games that I beat this month.
6 games!
Let's do it. Let's hear it.
Yakuza 0.
Here we go. Done.
King of Dragons.
Done.
Knights of the Round.
Done.
Altered Beast.
Zookeeper.
Done. And Tekken Dark Resurrection. I finished all these games this month.
He was a very lazy person this month.
Do you feel like any of those? Well, I guess you like Yakuza. Of the other 5, let's take Yakuza out of it. But of the other 5, were any of them approaching the level of good?
I loved King of Dragons. King of the Dragons. I played it on the PSP, which I've recently fallen in love with just by itself as a system. I think the PSP is amazing. But King of the Dragons is a beat-em-up like D&D where you can play as a elf, a dwarf, a fighter, a cleric, or a wizard. And you level up, your weapons can level up, your armor can level up.
Elf or dwarf?
Yeah, 2 races instead of classes. I know, that's like old school D&D, but like Gauntlet always had that as well. Like the elf is an archer for some reason.
But they call it, okay.
They call it elf.
Okay, sorry.
It should be called archer.
I played the game and I was like, I didn't even notice.
And I love the flavor of the game. There's treasure chests that are traps. Some of them turn into mimics. If you play D&D, you know what I'm talking about. Some of them have like ice spells that freeze you. You fight amazing bosses like Cyclops, a Minotaur, a Wyvern, a Wraith, the Black Knight. Like, they have really flavorful bosses, and it's a game that I think everybody should probably check out. If you play it with free credits like I did, you could finish it in about 40 minutes.
Oh yeah, free credits, which is why I then picked up the PSP and played it, because for my odds and ends, I'm doing the CCABC challenge, which I don't know if we talked about. It's about clearing games off of your backlog, but doing it
yeah.
within the year and knocking off a game that starts with each letter of the alphabet. And I thought, well, this is a really good way to motivate me to play some games, and it will help me decide which games, because a lot of times you're just sitting there like, I don't even know what to play. But if I know, oh, I haven't finished a game that starts with a J yet, then that narrows down my list of options. So I was like, oh, this is a great way to do it. I played a game called Nevs, and I didn't know what it was. It was for my DS. I put it in, and then it's just basically a Chinese tangram game where, like, they'll show you a silhouette, and you have 7 geometric pieces, and you have to figure out how to make that shape using these pieces. Like, oh, this is good. So I did it in the timed mode, this is how crazy my brain is. The time mode, I was like, if I finish it under time pressure mode, then that'll be like finishing the game, even though there are other ways to play the game. If I do all of the pieces, all of the puzzles in time pressure mode, which is 3 minutes, then I'll consider myself as having finished the game. But then when I did it, I realized if I took longer than a minute, I only got a silver medal. So for me, it was time pressure mode where I had to do everything under a minute, and there's like about 540 puzzles. So I did 540 puzzles under a minute, and I was like, yeah, I'm done the game. But then the completion rate said I was only like 30-something% done the game. I'm like, well, that won't do.
That's staggering.
That won't do. This is what I did. I played it in 7 steps mode, because there's 7 pieces, and then Miles pointed out to me that Nevs is just 7 backwards, and I never figured that out. But
that was the greatest puzzle of all.
That's the greatest puzzle of all.
So then I did all 540 puzzles again, where as soon as you touch a piece, you have to place it. So you have to finish every puzzle in 7 moves. And then I did all 540 puzzles again, just in free mode, so that when I was done, I was 100% complete. So I did,
you know what?
1,600 puzzles.
Good for you.
And
time well spent. It sounds like it's time well spent.
It was not. I was playing it going, what am I doing? Why am I making this bedpan again? One of the things was a bedpan. I don't understand.
It's actually 1,620 puzzles.
Yeah.
So for my odds and ends this month, we finally got a chance to play a board game called Viticulture. And Viticulture is a board game about the making of wine.
No.
The growing of wine, the crushing of grapes, the making of
That's
bottles,
amazing.
the filling of orders. It is fantastic.
Is it?
It's so good, and I cannot win a single game of it.
Because you are not a vintner.
I just end up giving tours of my
These are my grapes.
my winery.
You know what? We've already established that you should be in the transportation industry.
In this day and age, you can't be a polymath. You have to specialize, and wine's not where I'm going to make my fortune. I'm going to make my fortune on drawing little lines, connecting circles and triangles.
That game really does sound fun, though. I'd love to try it next time.
Yeah, it's good.
So we have just a couple more things I want to get through really quick. There were some questions on the CC forums.
Oh.
So
Questions.
the first, both of them refer to me by name, but they're for anyone.
Sure.
What is your biggest regret in terms of not purchasing a particular item? Does anyone have any answers for that? Mine was I saw an NES garage sale lot when I wasn't collecting games, and all the games were in boxes with manuals, and the NES was boxed with a manual, all in perfect condition. And I grabbed like a couple games I never heard of, like the Quattro Adventure and Quattro something else. But there were tons of games there, and I really wish I just picked them all up. They were like $3 each.
I regret my parents not buying me a Power Glove when I was a kid, because then I would have learned what disappointment is early enough that I would not have bought No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky.
So there you go.
Full circle.
Full circle. What's...
I have no regrets.
No regrets. No regrets.
I buy anything I want whenever I want because I have zero money skills.
It is my greatest fear that this question comes up. So I just make it a point to buy everything. What is your best or favorite purchase, either video game related or otherwise? Otherwise, I bought an unlimited Mox Jet for $250. That's a Magic the Gathering card. I then sold it for $700 cash and $300 in video games. So I think that was probably my best purchase overall in terms of making money. But my best purchase overall was the PS4 because we've had hours.
Yeah,
and hours
I
of
was
fun
just
with
gonna say our PS3 and our PS4. Us buying a PS3 was really funny because I really, really wanted a PS3, and I, for some reason, thought that because Miles' friends all had Xbox 360s, that he was going to want an Xbox 360, so we just didn't buy anything. And then one day, Miles was, like, flipping through a comic book, I think, and there was an ad for a PS3, and he was like, why don't we have one of these yet? And I just looked at him and was like, oh my god, I didn't think you actually wanted one. And then we just went out the next day and bought one because we had just never actually spoken to each other about whether or not, like, if we wanted to get one. I just assumed that he wanted an Xbox. So I was like, no, I guess we can't get this because I wanted a PS3. And then ever since then, we've been having hours and hours and too many hours of fun playing on our PlayStations.
And finally, our...
Oh, wait.
No, I got nothing. I was just going to say, guys, you can't focus on these material possessions. You have to disconnect yourself from...
It's the only thing that keeps us together. We are 10 years strong because of this PS3.
It works out because we actually are giving away a non-material thing.
Oh, spirituality.
As a prize. It's Stardew Valley.
Maybe even Day of the Tentacle is an option if someone wants that instead.
But the person who won is...
Dun, 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 dun.
Angry Canadian Decepticon, who's also the person who just asked us those two questions.
Oh, and he already plays Stardew Valley, so maybe, hopefully, maybe he'll want one of the other things that we have to offer.
Yeah, we'll let him know. Contact us, and we'll arrange something. Next month's prize...
We have to, make a disclaimer. That is actually random. We don't...
Yeah.
It actually was random.
Some people are saying it's rigged.
Hey,
just
everyone,
a coincidence.
that was
he's
random.
Also the one asking.
If you ask a question, maybe we'll give you a prize. Thank you to our one fan, Angry Rabid
Canadian
Decepticon. Thank you for listening.
I was on his podcast earlier this month.
This is just a circle.
Oh, no. I'm cutting that out.
Next month's prize will be something from the Buried Game Exchange, which is tomorrow.
Oh,
Come buy
yeah.
our stuff.
I'm going to pick out something to give away. That's going to be my thing.
So thank you all so much for listening. For Chris and Kathryn, I'm Miles. Take care, everybody.